Hello, all my bookworm buddies. It's so good to see you again. Feels like it's been a long time since we were together for our books. I missed that. And it's a new year, and we're starting a new author, which is very exciting. And you know, we did a lot of books for Eric Carle, and he was one of my favorites, of course. And this man's name is also one of my favorites. His name is Leo Leone, two L's. Doesn't that sound funny together? It's a musical name, Leo Leone. Leo Leone was a wonderful man. I saw a movie about him one time. He lived in Italy part of the year and America, New York, as a matter of fact, which isn't too far from you, the other part of the year. When he was in Europe, he had a home by a creek, and he started writing stories about the little creatures in his creek. And that's mostly what he writes his stories about, are small animals, small creatures in nature. He loved nature. They showed pictures of him sitting by the creek and watching the frogs and the fish and the turtles, and he likes mice. And sometimes a mouse would run by him. And he likes to write stories about mice. Those are the great, really fun ones that he writes. But this is his name, Leo Leone, so we'll be doing some of his books. And they're just fun stories. This first one is about some frogs who are friends, and it's called It's Mine. Which, does that sound like something? Do you have any idea what that would be about? Seems like I used to hear my kids yell, "It's mine, it's mine." And when they would argue about something. But this is a cute little, they call it a fable, because it kind of has a lesson to it. It's mine. And even frogs, just like Eric Carle showed, have personalities. He's kind of like Eric Carle because he writes about small creatures. And remember, Eric Carle loved insects particularly. So this is about the three frogs. In the middle of Rainbow Pond, there was a small island. Smooth pebbles lined its beaches, and it was covered with ferns and leafy weeds. He makes most of his pictures are what's called earth tones. They're like light colors, greens and browns, because he writes about nature, and we don't see bright colors in nature all the time. He also loves pebbles, little tiny pebbles. They're in lots of his books. On the island lived three quarrelsome frogs named Milton, Rupert, and Lydia. They quarreled and quibbled from dawn to dusk. You know what quarrel means? Quibble is about the same thing. It just means they're arguing about things kind of all day long, dawn until dusk. "Stay out of the pond," yelled Milton. "The water is mine." So Milton thinks he owns the water. "Get off the island," shouted Rupert. "The earth is mine." Instead of arguing about toys, they're arguing about nature. Somebody thinks they own the water, someone owns the earth. "The air is mine," screamed Lydia as she leaped to catch a butterfly. And so it went. This is pretty much how they spend their days. One day, a large toad appeared before them. "I live on the other side of the island," he said. "But I can hear you shouting, 'It's mine, it's mine, it's mine,' all day long. There's no peace because of your endless bickering. You can't go on like this." With that, the toad slowly turned around and hopped away through the weeds. So he's really annoyed with how they behave. And they're looking astounded. No sooner had he left than Milton ran off with a large worm. The others hopped after him. "Worms are for everybody," they cried. But Milton croaked defiantly, "Not this one, it's mine." Did they listen to the big frog? No. Toad, excuse me. Toads are a little different than frogs, much larger. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and a rumble of distant thunder circled the island. Rain filled the air, and the water turned to mud. The island grew smaller and smaller, and it was swallowed up by the rising flood. The frogs were scared. Now, what will happen when they have a terrible event like this? Will they grow closer together, or will they continue arguing? What do you think? Desperately, they clung to the few slippery stones that still rose above the wild, dark water, but soon these too began to disappear. They're trying to hang on to a few little stones just to survive in this terrible storm that's swallowing up their island. And look how they look frightened. Isn't that amazing that an illustrator, because Leo Leone is an illustrator and an author just like Eric Carle, that he can make his characters appear tired or hungry or scared or angry. I could never do that with a picture. There was only one rock left, and there the frogs huddled, trembling from cold and fright. But they felt better now that they were together, sharing the same fears and hopes. Little by little, the floods subsided, the rain fell gently, and then stopped altogether. Something about being together in their fears. Maybe we'll change them. Who knows? They look a little happier and content. He draws a beautiful storm. But look, the large rock that had saved them was no rock at all. You saved us, shouted the frogs when they recognized the toad. Toads are larger, of course, so they could help to protect smaller creatures. The next morning, the water had cleared. Sun rays chased silver minnows on the sandy bottom of the pond. Joyfully, the frogs jumped in, and side by side, they swam all around the island. You don't hear them arguing, do you? Together, they leaped after, you can see these. Together, they leaped after the swarms of butterflies that filled the air. Look at all the butterflies they have. And later, when they rested in the weeds, they felt happy in a way they had never felt before. Are they bickering, arguing, quarreling, quibbling? No. Isn't it peaceful, said Milton. And isn't it beautiful, said Rupert. And do you know what else, said Lydia? No, what the others asked. It's ours, she said. Did they change from that experience with the toad? They certainly did. And they recognized that quibbling and arguing over things isn't any good at all for us. And they realized everything belongs to all of us, especially in nature. Exactly. So in their world, that was a very important lesson that they learned. I hope they continued to get along like that. Our second Leo Leone story, which is small, so I hope you'll be able to see the pictures. It's a really fun one too, called Fish is Fish. And there's some unique little fish there. He's kind of imagining something that you will see shortly. It's very hard to keep paperbacks stiff and standing the way I could with most of my Eric Carle books were hardback books, so this is a little tricky. Fish is fish. The same earth tones, remember I told you that means greens and browns and light colors, not light blues. They're called earth tones. Colors you see in the earth in nature. At the edge of the woods, there was a pond, and there a minnow and a tadpole swam among the weeds. They were inseparable friends, which means they're always together. If you're inseparable, you might be inseparable with a friend. They're always together, and there's a minnow and a tadpole. This is the tadpole. Here's the minnow over here. And the beautiful earth tones that he draws. So pretty. Let me turn so I can see it. It's a little tricky, and I hope you can see the pictures. One morning, the tadpole discovered that during the night he had grown 2 little legs. I don't know if you can see them. You know what he's going to be, right? Yeah, tadpole's going to be something else. Look, he said triumphantly. Look, I am a frog. Nonsense, said the minnow. How could you be a frog if only last night you were a little fish just like me? When he is a tadpole, he looks a little like him. They argued and argued until finally the tadpole said, frogs are frogs and fish is fish, and that's that. In the weeks that followed, the tadpole grew tiny front legs, and his tail got smaller and smaller. And the little fish is looking upon him with despair a little bit. He's thinking, what is happening to my friend who once looked like me? And then one fine day, a real frog now, he climbed out of the water and onto the grassy bank. Now here's his friend the fish watching him come out of the water because he's now a real frog. The minnow too had grown and had become a full-fledged fish. He often wondered where his four-footed friend had gone, but days and weeks went by, and the frog did not return. He can't understand what has happened to his friend. Then one day, with a happy splash that shook the weeds, the frog jumped into the pond. "Where have you been?" asked the fish excitedly. "I have been about the world, hopping here and there," said the frog, "and I have seen extraordinary things." So he's been out and about. The little fish can't go out and about, and there's some pebbles, which Leo Leone loves pebbles. You'll see them in all his books. Now this is fun. He says, "Like what?" asked the fish. "What did you see?" "Birds," said the frog mysteriously. "Birds." And he told the fish about the birds who had wings and 2 legs and many, many colors. So in his imagination, this is the fish. This is all what he's thinking in his mind, what he's imagining from what the frog tells him. So he says birds with wings and feet. And what does the little fish think of? Obviously, it's going to be a fish too. As the frog talked, his friend saw the birds fly through his mind like large feathered fish. "What else?" asked the fish impatiently. "Cows," said the frog. "Cows. They have 4 legs, horns, they eat grass, and they carry pink bags of milk." So this is what the fish is imagining a cow looks like, obviously. Look at the pink bags of milk. Isn't that cute? Still, he's thinking fish. "And people," said the frog. "Men, women, children." And he talked and talked until it was dark in the pond. But the picture in the fish's mind was full of lights and colors and marvelous things, and he couldn't sleep. Oh, if he could only jump about like his friend and see that wonderful world. Look at what he imagines the people are. Because he has no idea, really. He's thinking in his world. That's what a people must look like in a fish. And here's more of his wonderful imagination, what he's thinking. There's people walking and birds flying and the cows here too. Isn't that cute? That's what the little fish is imagining. He has no idea. And so the days went by. The frog had gone. The fish just lay there dreaming about birds in flight, grazing cows, and those strange animals all dressed up that his friend called people. One day he finally decided that come what may, he too must see them. And so, with a mighty whack of the tail, he jumped clear out of the water onto the bank. You know, the side of the pond would be called the bank. He gets a big jump with his tail, and it pushes him right out. Sometimes fish do jump up in the air in ponds. He landed on the dry, warm grass, and there he lay, gasping for air, unable to breathe or to move. "Help!" he groaned feebly. Did he make a mistake? Absolutely. Poor fish. Luckily, the frog, who had been hunting butterflies nearby, saw him with all his strength, pushed him back into the pond. He's very lucky. His friend was nearby. Still stunned, the fish floated about for an instant. Then he breathed deeply, letting the clean, cool water run through his gills. Remember, fish breathe through their gills, which are on the side of them. Now he felt weightless again, and with an ever so light motion of the tail, he could move to and fro, up and down as before. The sun rays reached down within the weeds and gently shifted patches of luminous color. This world was surely the most beautiful of all worlds. He's happy in his world. He smiled at his friend, the frog, who sat watching him from a lily leaf. "You were right," he said. "Fish is fish." Isn't that cute? And that's what he's telling him. Fish is fish. We have to be who we are, don't we? I have one little request for you. You have your blue journal. If you could write this in your blue journal, I wrote, Leo Leone is telling us blank. What is Leo Leone telling us in his story? All his stories have a little message. I would like you to just write, well, Leo Leone is telling us, just write what you think it means. fish is fish. What does that mean? What does that mean for us? Or for other animals? Just put the little message there if you don't mind. It was fun being with you again. Take care. Stay safe, bookworms.